Hello, hello, Facebook family. Welcome to another episode of Marriage Mondays with Nick and Trina Brinson. We're glad you're joining us here today or joining us later or looking at it later whenever you have your time to look at it or time you dedicated to look at Marriage Mondays. And then we're just here in representation of our marriage ministry at Crown Kingdom Cultural Center to bring you some information about your marriage. And tonight's topic is we're going to talk about misconceptions in marriage.
Misconceptions. And there are quite a few misconceptions.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you want to be operating from a place of truth and a place of right beliefs instead of based on misconceptions, because you're going to be let down if you believe some of the things if you continue to believe a misconception.
Right.
So we want to operate from truth.
It's very important that we do it like that. All right. So
we probably need to share. You got your phone?
It's actually in my pocket, and I'll share afterwards.
Okay. All right. Well, did you say the church? We do invite you to come out to our church to visit. It's Crown Kingdom Cultural Center, and it's located in North Augusta, South Carolina, which is basically Augusta, Georgia. Just right on the border. So we encourage you to, if you live in Augusta or Aiken or Edgefield or Graniteville, even Evans, if you're anywhere in the CSRA area, you're not too far to come visit. It's not far at all. We drive all the time from Evans, a couple times a week, few times a week. It's not a bad drive at all, and it's definitely worth it. So we encourage you to come out. We have service on Sundays at 10 a.m. We also have Wednesday night Bible study at 7 p.m. And we also offer, our pastor offers several Bible studies during the week at 7:30 a.m. Foundations with Finace, and that's to help you examine just some basic Christian foundations to help you study. So I encourage you to kind of take a peek at that, and it's all recorded. You don't have to get up at 7:30 a.m., which I don't think is too early, to be honest. But that's available, as well as our grief ministry comes on the Mondays we're not on, they're on. And God knows we all need some grief counseling, and that's essentially what they offer is some wise biblical counsel for how to manage grief and loss.
Right.
Not just death, but loss and other things that you may grieve as well. Learn some skills. Just like for marriage, you need skills. The same is true for navigating grief. Grief can be debilitating if you don't manage it well, learn how to handle it and get to the other side. So we, as a church ministry, want to help people with that. Not just our church members, but all people, particularly the body of Christ. So I just encourage you to reach out, take advantage on our Facebook page. You can catch Bishop Bush's sermons kind of cataloged on Finace Bush . His first name is Finace, Finace, instead of Finace. It's pronounced like finest without the T. But the spelling is different. Finace, Finace Bush, with the dot at the end instead of the middle. So just check it out on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook as you're here today with us, most likely. And just get what there is available to help you.
And one more thing we can mention, we've been in partnership with a local radio station, and we have a concert series going on right now. It's called First Fridays at the church. Right. And we've had several artists that have come through and had little mini concerts at the church on the first Friday of the month.
Right. And the one this month, which will be on May the 2nd, May 3rd. May 3rd, the first Friday in May, will be dedicated to quartets. And so each first Friday, there's a different musical agenda. But we encourage you to come out and take advantage of those free concerts. And these are nationally recognized artists that have come out, like Vashawn Mitchell a couple of weeks ago. Yep. So just take advantage of it. Check, and that's listed on our Facebook page and our announcements as well. So, anywho,
let's get down to Business of the night.
Let's get with it. Those of you that have come on with us, we encourage you to go ahead and share so people can be aware that we are here, and so they can join in. And even afterwards, if you'll share with others, we will do the same. And for those who join us afterwards, share this link with people who might benefit from today's message. It'll be pretty broad, so there are a lot of people who can benefit from what we're going to talk about today.
Right. And a lot of the information we're giving you tonight comes from the research that we do and the things that we talk about. And it comes from WinShape. And WinShape, I'm familiar with WinShape because it's partnership with FCA Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And they do retreats for husbands and wives and their mission is to keep marriages together. That's what they do. So with that being said, we're going to talk about the misconceptions in marriage. And one of the first misconceptions we're going to talk about is your marriage won't ever have a conflict. It's always going to be good.
That's not only a misconception. That's just a lie. It's impossible.
It's a terrible lie.
Yeah, it's impossible for two people to build something as intimate as a marriage and not have some conflict. Right. You will have conflict, and that's a healthy part of marriage.
Mm-hmm. It's when you can't solve the conflict through resolution, that's the problem. Yeah. So you got, like me and my wife always talk about, you got to have certain skills in your marriage in order to make your marriage work. And we understand, and if you've been in marriage any amount of time or a relationship, you know that a conflict will occur, and you just got to have the skills to resolve those conflicts. So never go into a marriage or thinking in your marriage that my marriage is terrible because me and my wife or me and my husband, we have conflict sometimes. That's growth because you're learning each other through the conflicts. You're learning to
maybe
solve.
You are. The problem comes when you're not learning from the conflict. Because some people have conflict and it just escalates into a fight, an argument, and nothing productive.
And don't get the word conflict mixed up with fighting. Unresolved conflict means that there's something going on between you two that you don't agree on. But then when my wife, you escalate into a fight, that's another level that
you don't want to get to
mediation.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. Conflict really just means that the two of you have a different opinion, a different way of viewing, different perspective, and that's normal. One of you is male, one of you is female. You come from different backgrounds. You're thinking, the two have to become one, and you have to become one in your thinking. And prior to becoming one, just a note of becoming, the word becoming denotes that there is a need for two to be joined together. So you're starting out with two separate thought processes, two separate methods, two separate beliefs even. And those things have to be merged into one. And that takes some intentionality, and it takes work, and it takes skill to do it without damaging one another.
Right. And so that's why it's best to live on the principles of the Bible. That's one place you can agree in that does not require you to do something. Okay, let's agree on this word principle, and now we can come together and talk about it and figure out together how we can live in this marriage together, even though we have this conflict. You have to learn to agree on a certain point. Right. Sometimes you can learn to disagree on it, and you can live in that disagreement as long as it doesn't violate one or the other person. So, conflicts will occur. That is just a truth.
Give me an example about living within a disagreement?
Living in a disagreement, if you want the spread on the bed to be a certain color, but the other person like this color the most. Okay. I don't agree with that, but I can live with it.
But that's agreement. I would say that's agreement. Even though you might not like it, if the two of you make a decision, you're in agreement.
Right, but you agree.
So, if I like purple and you like orange, So if our compromise or the decision we made by the two of us coming together was to get a blue one, or you might have decided, well, we can go with purple, it ain't that serious. I think we're still in agreement.
But I think that's kind of an example of agreeing to disagree.
Well, that's why I wanted you to elaborate on that. I would call that agreement. Okay. Because just because you don't, that's the skill, is to communicate through that conflict so that you can get to a peaceful resolution.
Right.
Okay? Let's talk about another misconception. Another misconception is that good, healthy marriages come naturally. That when you marry the right person, everything just
the right person
flows naturally.
Oh, that's my soulmate. My God.
And so you think everything's supposed to flow naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you hit conflict, you think, oh, well, I didn't marry the right person.
Yeah, this person ain't for me.
That's a misconception. Because I don't care who you marry, you got to work through conflict. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to work out your relationship. You're going to have to work out the details of life together. And you will have some bumps. You will have some conflict. You will have some areas that you will both have to make adjustments on. That's just part of the marriage process. And if you know that going into marriage, you won't be so devastated when those things start to happen. I kind of had that thought process that, you know, if you marry the right, as long as you marry the right person, then the relationship's going to be good. And for a long time it was. I mean, it did. It worked. I mean, we dated a long time. Mm-hmm. And I mean, even when we had conflict, it wasn't that hard to work it out. Because we were still single, kind of each had our own thing going on. Once we got married, we didn't have any kids. It wasn't terribly hard for us to coexist together peacefully those first few years. It wasn't until we started having children.
And then we had to get some skills. Mm-hmm. And we had to realize that the marriage was not about the right person, but about intentionality and commitment. Mm-hmm. That we're going to be together.
And not being selfish.
Sometimes, yeah, we've been through some times where we were like, this here ain't working for me. I don't like this at all. And then it just took some skills and mentors and people that loved us and care about us to let us see that what we were going through was just kind of a natural growth. And it
takes skills to get through it.
And we got through it. And so that's why we're here trying to help you understand that if you got some good stuff going, and I say good stuff, I know that's kind of vague. Mm-hmm. If you got a good marriage, if you got the Lord ahead of your life, if you got some foundational stuff in place, you can get through a lot of stuff, and you run your life by principle. But it has to be intentional, and you gotta say, I am going to commit to this person. So.
And it still takes some skills, because I don't know how bad you want it. If you're not willing to do the work, you're not going to get the benefit of it. You have to do the work to make your relationship successful. And it's not 50-50. That's a misconception number 3. Is that marriage is 50-50. Well, I put in 50%, but that person got to put in 50% too. That's a misconception.
It's a balancing act. You can't go into a marriage thinking it's going to be a 50-50 thing or deal. I'm going to handle the kids 50% of the time, you handle the kids 50%. I'm going to pay the bills 50% of the time, you pay the bill 50% of the time. Or 50% of my money going to the bills and 50% of your... That statement, you need to get rid of that. Because there's going to have to be some sacrifices and some stuff done to make this marriage to be the successful marriage it is. Sometimes, you may have to take care of the kids for a week by yourself while your spouse is out working somewhere. You may have to do the things that you don't want to do because your spouse may be down, may be sick. You can't look at it as 50%. It's never going to work out like that.
If you don't give 100% of your effort, then you're part of the problem, and you're a big part of the problem in the marriage. It takes 2 people giving 100% of their effort. If you're not all in, then you're somewhere else.
Oh yeah, I like that. Being all in.
You got to be all in. And so it's not about looking at it percentage wise. No one person makes up a marriage. That's just a single person. So if you have 2 people in a marriage and both people are doing their best and giving 100% and they're 100% committed, you can work through those things that are challenging, particularly when you put the Lord first. That's the biggest advantage, is being a kingdom citizen and having access to the supernatural power of God to help you through those hard times, so that you can tolerate more than you thought you could. You can change more than you thought you could. You can give more than you thought you could, based upon God giving you what you need in order to be successful in your marriage. And when you pattern your marriage after the way God has given us instructions in the Bible, that's your recipe for success. But you have to be willing to be all in. You can't do the other person's part. You can only do your part, but your part takes 100% of your effort.
Yeah, that's not good balance. Some of your effort. Okay. All right. We hear people say this statement. It says, my spouse completes me. They fulfill all my needs. That's another job, y'all.
That's giving a human God's place.
You can't do that for a person. God can only make that person complete.
Right.
And what you want is God in that other person's life. If you decide to get married to somebody, you need God in that other person's life so God can complete those areas that are not complete in them, so they are good for you, or so you're good for each other. Mm-hmm. It's never a time where if that person is incomplete, that they're looking for you to complete them. If you ever hear those words from another person, say, "Oh my God, you complete me." Well, that person's gonna be disappointed one day because at some point as a human, you're gonna disappoint them.
Right, you're not God, and you can't be God for your spouse.
No,
it's so important for each person in the marriage to have their own relationship with God. That's the strength of the marriage, and that's when you are two complete whole people coming together as one. That's when you really have a good foundation for building a solid marriage. Each of you should be able to function with just you and God. If something were to happen to where your spouse is no longer with you, you still have God, so that your spouse not being with you doesn't devastate you to the point that you can't function. That's the reason you need God in your life. Mm-hmm. God is there. God is what completes you. It's who completes you. Your spouse, you're there to complement one another. You're there for the two to become one. But that process doesn't work if you're not a whole person individually. It's a hard burden to have to carry another grown person when you're both supposed to be carrying each other and supporting each other and working together. God carries you, but you're working together to become a better individual person. You want to be a better child of God while you become better at being someone's husband or wife.
And I'm going to say this, and when you tell a person or say to a person over and over, you complete me, you my all in all, that person becomes your God.
It's idol.
And then
they're your idol.
Can use that to abuse you.
There's a lot.
That's some foolishness. Go ahead.
There are a lot of songs, like secular love songs, that will say, "You're my everything. I can't breathe without you. I need you. My life would just end without you." And we got to recognize that, that really ain't as cute as, we try to make it out to be. That's idolatry. You're making that person your God.
Absolutely.
And you can't be somebody's everything.
Impossible.
That's an imbalance, and that misprioritizes God in your life. So you want to prioritize God so that God is your source, not your spouse. Okay. Right. We probably got time for one more, don't we?
Yeah.
Happy couples do everything together. Is that true?
No. No.
So there,
my goodness.
It doesn't mean of course you enjoy doing things together. Mm-hmm. But it certainly doesn't mean that because you do some things separately or with other people, that doesn't mean that your marriage is not as it should be. A healthy adult has healthy relationships beyond just their marriage. You should have other healthy relationships. It gets to be out of balance and dangerous when your spouse is your only friend. That's your only person that you can confide in. That's the only family member you trust. That's too much for one person.
It is.
It's too much. And so you need to, absence does make the heart grow fonder.
Sure
So,
does.
I mean, sometimes let them go, do something fun with their friends. And it makes your relationship stronger, and once you get back together, you appreciate each other more. But, you can enjoy things together, but just recognize that that's not a critical component. And it gets to be smothering. If you got to do every single thing together all the time, I'm trying to tell you, it might be cute at first. It might be cute for a couple years. But after a while, it gets to be a lot. And then you also aren't nurturing those other relationships in your life that are also important. Your other family relationships, your other friendships, your children. You have your parents, even your church family, your even your work. I mean, there are other relationships in your life besides your marriage. Your marriage should be the strongest. It's your anchor, that anchor relationship, and all other relationships should come secondary. But your spouse shouldn't be your only friend. That's out of balance, and that's unhealthy.
They should be your best friend. If you're going to call them a friend, they should be that number one person that you can always go to. But as far as, like my wife's saying, you can't do everything together. You were two individuals before you got together. You had some different interests. If those interests are positive and can nourish the marriage, I say do them. But don't do anything to violate your marriage because it's an extra interest. But as long as you are doing things that's positive and it's helping with your own personal happiness, I say do those things. But when you do them, you got to regard your spouse when you're doing those things.
And not offend that relationship.
Right. Don't offend that relationship. I think that needs to be said.
Yeah,
don't offend it.
And the people who do offend your relationship are not people you should be involved with. You should have people surrounding you or people in your life that you have relationship who are supportive to your marriage relationship. So that's pretty important.
It is. Very, very much so.
Yeah. So we have several more of these we want to consider, and we'll probably talk about it next time we come back, right, which will be in a couple of weeks. It'll be May 6th? No, May 13th. May 13th is when we'll be back. Because that's a fifth. We have a fifth Monday in this month, so we'll skip that and skip the first. That's grief, which will be May 6th. So we'll be back on May 13th. Second and fourth Mondays is when we're here. So we appreciate those of you who joined us tonight. Looked like we had a slow night, but guess what? We're going to share it, and it's still going to reach people.
It is.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us, and let's get the word out.
Let's get the word out. Let's talk about these little misconceptions. And tonight's lesson was it's light, but it's right. I mean, it's some stuff that you can implement and some information you can implement that'll help your marriage or somebody else's. This marriage for good for all levels of marriage. This information, because some of them, the five we mentioned, I say this information is good for all levels of marriage.
Oh, levels, okay. Yeah.
So you don't necessarily has an age or a time of a reference. This is good for all times. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, you got any last minute comments?
I don't believe so.
All right. From the lady and the coach. We love y'all. Good night.